I didn't see it coming. Not from her. Not from Sophia. She was my twin sister, the one person in the world I thought I could trust without question. But the moment I walked into that room, my heart stopped. My breath caught in my throat. There they were, together, laughing, a stolen moment that didn't belong to me. It was supposed to be mine, our moment. "Ethan and I are engaged," she said, her voice laced with a sweetness I didn't recognize. She didn't even look at me. As if I wasn't standing there, frozen in the doorway of our parents' house, staring at her with wide eyes. I wanted to scream, to rage against the injustice of it all. But all that came out was a shaky laugh, hollow, empty. "Congratulations," I whispered, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Sophia, always the charming one, always the golden child. Her smile was radiant, her beauty effortlessly enchanting, and now she had the one thing I had been dreaming of for years. Ethan, my Ethan, the one who promised me forever, the one who swore he'd never look at anyone the way he looked at me. And there she was, his arm wrapped around her waist, her hand resting comfortably in his. He didn't even seem embarrassed. He didn't seem guilty. There was no remorse in his eyes, nothing that would suggest he was breaking my heart right in front of me. I felt my knees go weak, and I had to grip the doorframe just to keep myself standing. The room spun, and for a moment I thought I might collapse, right there on the hardwood floor, my body betraying me just as they had. "What are you talking about?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely more than a whisper. "You can't be serious." Sophia turned to me, her eyes cold, calculating. She took a step toward me and my heart dropped. She always knew how to make me feel small, like I didn't matter. "Of course I'm serious," she said, her tone casual, as if she hadn't just ripped my world apart. "Ethan and I are getting married. I thought you'd be happy for us." I stared at her, dumbfounded. Happy? Happy for her? Happy that she'd taken something that had never belonged to her? Happy that she'd stolen the love of my life from me? The love I thought would change everything. "Happy," I repeated, the word hanging in the air between us, thick with bitterness. "You think I'm happy?" She raised an eyebrow, her lips curving into a smirk, a look I knew all too well. The one she used when she knew she'd won, when she knew she had the upper hand. "You should be, Ava," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "After all, you were never really cut out for someone like Ethan." The sting of her words hit harder than I could have imagined. It wasn't just what she said, it was the way she said it. Like she was talking about some insignificant detail, like I was nothing, like I didn't deserve him. I felt the tears burn behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not now, not in front of her. Instead, I forced a smile, the kind that never reached my eyes. "Enjoy your life," I said, each word wrapped in as much ice as I could muster. "But just so you know, I never needed him. Not then, not now." She laughed, that high-pitched laugh that grated on my nerves, the one that always made her seem like she had it all figured out. "Don't kid yourself, Ava. You're too nice to fight for anything, but it's okay. You'll be fine." She turned back to Ethan, offering him a look that made my stomach churn. I wanted to scream at him, to demand why he had chosen her, but all I could do was stare at them, the tightness in my chest growing with each passing second. I felt sick. Before they could say another word, I turned and walked away, my heart pounding in my ears, my body shaking with the weight of everything I had. I didn't see it coming. Not from her. Not from Sophia. She was my twin sister, the one person in the world I thought I could trust without question. But the moment I walked into that room, my heart stopped. My breath caught in my throat. There they were, together, laughing, a stolen moment that didn't belong to me. It was just learned. I didn't stop until I was out of the house, in the middle of the street, standing in the cold, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Sophia had always been better than me. Pretty, poised, always the center of attention, and now she had taken the one thing that had kept me going. Ethan, the one person I thought would be there for me, no matter what. I didn't know what I was supposed to do now. How could I go on? How could I even look at them without feeling like the world was swallowing me whole? But there was something deep inside me, a flicker of anger, a spark I couldn't ignore. Something told me that This betrayal wasn't the end. No, it was only the beginning. I would prove them wrong. I would rise higher than they could ever imagine. And one day, Sophia would regret this. One day, I would be the one standing at the top. And when that day came, I would get the last laugh. It took everything in me not to turn around and go back inside that house. I stood there for what felt like hours, just staring at the cold concrete beneath my feet, trying to breathe through the knot in my throat. The tears that had threatened to fall earlier were now a dull ache in my chest, a reminder of everything I'd lost. But I couldn't stay there forever. I couldn't let myself stay broken. I started walking. At first, it was aimless, just a desperate need to put some distance between me and the wreckage of my life. But with each step, something inside me shifted. The weight in my chest began to lighten, and the anger I'd pushed down for so long started to rise, crawling through my veins like fire. I didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve to be the afterthought, the second choice. Sophia had stolen my fiancé, yes, but she'd stolen something else too. My sense of worth, my belief that I was capable of anything. And I was done with it. It didn't matter that she was the pretty one, the one who always had everything handed to her. It didn't matter that she was the favorite, the one everyone adored, while I was always in the background, always the one who tried harder but never got the recognition. I wasn't going to be the one left behind anymore. I wasn't going to fade into the shadows of her success, her popularity, her life. I would fight for myself, for everything I had ever wanted, and I would get it, no matter what it took. I went home and locked myself in my room. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that felt suffocating after the emotional storm that had just unfolded. I threw my bag on the bed, kicked off my shoes, and stood there for a moment, taking in the reality of everything that had just happened. Then, I went to my desk, pulled open the drawer, and started rifling through old notebooks. I had always been good at keeping my thoughts organized. My plans, my dreams, everything I ever wanted to accomplish was written down somewhere. But there was something new now, something I hadn't considered before. Revenge. I wasn't just going to move on. I wasn't just going to forget. I was going to build something bigger than them, something they would never see coming. It wasn't enough to become better. I had to make them regret ever thinking they could take what was mine. I made my first decision that night. I would throw myself into my career. I wasn't going to waste another minute on someone who didn't value me. I had always loved business, always had a knack for it, even if no one ever noticed. It was time to take it seriously. I had a plan, but it wasn't going to be easy. Nothing ever was for someone like me. I wasn't born with silver spoons or lofty connections. Everything I had, I would have to earn, and I wasn't afraid of that. I was ready. The next morning, I sent out my resume to every company I could find. No more hesitation. No more waiting for someone to offer me a chance. This was my shot. I spent the next few weeks in a frenzy, researching everything I could about the business world, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. I needed to know it all, every angle, every opportunity, every threat. By the time the first interview came around, I was ready, but I wasn't nervous. I was hungry, hungry for success, hungry for something more than just being the good girl that everyone expected me to be. I walked into that interview with a confidence I hadn't even known I had. I wasn't going to be the underdog anymore. I was going to take control. I was going to show them that I was more than just the girl they'd always overlooked. The interview went well. Too well, actually. By the time I left the office, they had already offered me the position. A starting job, sure, but it was a foot in the door, and that was all I needed. I didn't go straight home that day. Instead, I found a quiet cafe and sat down with my phone, sending out more applications. It was time to expand my network, time to make the right connections. Sophia would never know what hit her. As the weeks went by, I watched my sister's life unfold from the sidelines. She and Ethan were inseparable, and every picture, every post, felt like a sharp reminder of everything she had taken. But I wasn't bitter anymore. I was focused. I was climbing step by step, moving closer to my goal. No longer the shadow of Sophia's beauty or her life. I had my own path, my own future, and every time I got closer to my dream, I felt a rush of pride that I hadn't felt in years. But I knew, deep down, that I wasn't doing this just for myself. I was doing it for the Ava I used to be, the one who believed in love, who trusted people, who thought that kindness would be rewarded. And I would be damned if I let her stay in the past. The day I found out about her new company, a new business that she and Ethan had started together, I felt the familiar stab of jealousy in my gut. But it was different this time. This time, I didn't feel helpless. This time, I was ready. Sophia had made her move, but now it was my turn. I wasn't going to just get my life back. I was going to take everything she had. I was going to build something bigger, something better, and I would make sure everyone saw it. I wasn't just going to win, I was going to make them regret ever doubting me. I spent the next few months in overdrive. Every waking hour was consumed with my work, my research, my growth. I knew exactly what I had to do, and I would not stop until I had achieved it. I had a goal to surpass Sophia in every way imaginable, to make her see me not as the quiet, overlooked twin, but as a force to be reckoned with. The first few weeks at my new job felt like a test. They didn't take me seriously, of course. I was the new girl, young and eager, a fresh face in a world that had no time for either of those qualities. But I was determined. Every project they handed me, I gave everything I had. I worked longer hours than anyone, stayed late, came in early. It didn't matter how many times they overlooked me or underestimated me. I wasn't going to stop, and slowly, things began to shift. My bosses took notice of my commitment, my ideas, my ability to take charge when it mattered. My coworkers? They watched from the sidelines, either too comfortable in their positions to care or too threatened to lend a hand. But I didn't need them. I didn't need anyone. There was a fire inside me now, one I didn't even know I had. I wanted to win. I wanted to prove them wrong. Every time I worked through the exhaustion, every time I pushed myself harder, I could feel myself getting closer to the life I had dreamed of, the life I deserved. But no matter how much I accomplished, there was always a shadow lingering in the background. Sophia and Ethan. Their new company was flourishing, their social media posts filled with endless celebrations of their success. I saw them everywhere, but not in the way they thought they were being seen. They were getting accolades, yes, but I was silently growing, quietly building my empire. It wasn't long before I started making moves of my own. I began networking, meeting with potential business partners, seeking out opportunities that no one else saw. And I learned quickly. One thing was clear. In this world, you had to make your own opportunities. You couldn't wait for someone to hand them to you. It felt strange in a way, to be carving my own path. For years I had followed, watched from the sidelines, played the part of the dutiful sister, the one who didn't make waves. But that was the old Ava, the one who had been willing to settle for whatever scraps were left behind. This new Ava, she wasn't settling for anything. One day, I was sitting in my office, catching up on emails when an invitation caught my eye. It was a gala, an exclusive business event, the kind of thing only the most influential people in the city were invited to. At the top of the list of attendees? None other than Sophia and Ethan. My stomach twisted. The idea of facing them again, seeing their smug faces, felt like a test I wasn't ready for. But then I remembered why I was doing this. I wasn't doing it to get revenge. No, I was doing this to prove to myself that I could stand on my own, that I didn't need them or anyone holding my hand. And just like that, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't hide in the shadows anymore. I couldn't let them think they had won, that they were untouchable. I sent my RSVP the very next minute. The night of the gala, I walked into that glittering ballroom like I owned the place. My heels clicked against the marble floors, echoing in the cavernous space. The room was filled with the who's who of the business world, their chatter ringing in my ears. And in the center of it all stood Sophia, radiant as ever, her arm hooked through Ethan's, both of them basking in the spotlight. For a moment, I thought I might turn around and walk right back out. But then I remembered the look in her eyes when she had told me they were getting married. How easy it had been for her to take something that didn't belong to her. How quickly she had moved on with Ethan, like I had never been a part of their story. I wasn't going to be that person anymore, the one who watched from the sidelines. I moved through the crowd, purpose in my step, until I stood before them. Sophia looked at me, her expression unreadable for a moment, before her lips curled into that same smug smile. "Ava," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I wasn't expecting you here. How nice to see you. I met her eyes, not flinching, not backing down. Nice to be seen, I replied, my voice steady. Ethan's eyes widened slightly, and for a brief moment, I saw something in his face that made my heart beat a little faster. A flicker of regret, maybe. But it was gone just as quickly as it had appeared. Sophia shifted uncomfortably beside him. I didn't think you were the gala type, she said, her tone now tinged with something else. Annoyance, perhaps. What's your company doing here, Ava? I smiled, knowing I had her right where I wanted her. Actually, I'm here to network, I said, my voice laced with confidence. It's funny, isn't it? How quickly things change. You think you know someone's plans, their future, but life has a way of surprising you. Ethan stiffened beside her, clearly not prepared for this kind of conversation. What do you mean? He asked, his voice cautious. I leaned in, my eyes never leaving Sophia's. It's just funny, Ethan. You and Sophia, building your little empire while I've been quietly building mine. Sophia's smile faltered. What's that supposed to mean? I could see the panic creeping into her eyes. She was scared. I'd been quiet long enough. I'm the CEO of my own company now, Sophia, I said, the words hanging in the air like a bomb. You've been so focused on your little fairy tale that you've missed it. I'm not the same person I was when you took everything from me. I've moved on. And as I turned to leave, I couldn't help but smile, because for the first time, I didn't feel small anymore. I didn't feel inferior. I felt powerful. And I was just getting started. It wasn't the first time I'd thrown a punch, figuratively speaking, but it was the first time I'd thrown one with intention. Real intention. That night at the gala, I had made my mark. I had planted the seed of doubt in Sophia's mind, made her realize that things weren't as perfect as they appeared. But what came next wasn't the rush of victory I expected. It was the cold, hard reality of the battle I'd just started. When I woke up the next morning, the weight of what I'd said at the gala lingered in my chest like a heavy stone. I had made my move, but that was only the first step. The next was going to be harder, and I had no illusions. Sophia wasn't going to let this go easily. Neither was Ethan. They were playing a different game. One where money, influence, and power had no limits. They could have everything they wanted, and they thought they already had it all. But they had never factored me in, not like this. I spent the next few days navigating the minefield that had been my life since that gala. It wasn't just about my career anymore. I was now in the fight of my life, and I wasn't going to let them win. I faced every challenge with a growing resolve. There were setbacks, of course, problems with suppliers, issues with investors who didn't see my vision. Every obstacle seemed to grow bigger, more complicated. But with every wall they threw up, I tore it down. Every no was followed by a yes, because I wasn't going to stop. The hardest part wasn't the work itself, but the loneliness that came with it. I was so focused on my goal that I had isolated myself. My friends, my family, they all seemed like distant memories now. I was alone in this fight, and I knew I had to be. I couldn't afford distractions. And then there was Sophia's company, growing every day, expanding faster than mine despite my best efforts. It was frustrating. Seeing their success, watching them shine while I was still struggling, felt like a constant reminder of how far behind I was. But I was never one to back down. I knew the road wasn't going to be easy. No one ever said it would be. One day, a huge breakthrough came. An opportunity I had been working toward for months finally fell into place. A deal with a major investor who believed in me, in my vision. It wasn't just a financial win, it was a statement, a mark of my progress. I could feel the tide beginning to shift. But as quickly as things were falling into place, they also started to unravel. The first blow came unexpectedly. A letter arrived one afternoon, an official-looking document with my company's name on it. My heart sank as I opened it, reading the words over and over again. It was a cease and desist order. Sophia's company had filed a claim against mine, accusing me of intellectual property theft. They had somehow gotten their hands on a project I had been working on, something that had been in development for months. They claimed it was their idea first. I stared at the letter, disbelief coursing through my veins. They were coming after me. They were using their power, their influence to try to crush me. I knew this was going to be part of the game. Every fight has its dirty tricks. But I wasn't ready for this. I couldn't let them win. I sat in my office, the world outside feeling like it was closing in on me. My phone buzzed with notifications, but I didn't move. The cease and desist was a blow, no doubt. But it wasn't the end. It couldn't be. I took a deep breath and picked up my phone, dialing the number of my lawyer. "I need you to get on this," I said, my voice sharp, more controlled than I felt. "This is war now. I'm not backing down." I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every ounce of energy I had went into formulating a response. I went through every detail of their claim, cross-referencing with my work, checking every date, every document. I knew I had done nothing wrong, but that didn't matter. What mattered now was proving it. For days, I worked nonstop, gathering evidence, preparing for the inevitable battle that was coming. The legal war, the public battle, it was all unfolding faster than I could keep up with. But I was ready. The stakes had never been higher, and I was done playing small. By the time the legal team reached out to me with updates, I had already formed my strategy. I wasn't going to let this drag on. I wasn't going to sit back and let them bury me. I was going to fight back, and I was going to do it in the most public way possible. We filed our response, preparing to go to court, but I wasn't just going to sit there in silence, waiting for the case to unfold. I was going to take it to the media. I wasn't just fighting for my company anymore. I was fighting for every woman who had ever been overlooked, for every person who had been underestimated. Sophia and Ethan thought they had me cornered. They thought they could use their money and connections to destroy me, to crush my dreams before they even had a chance to take root. They were wrong. The first press release I sent out didn't mention the lawsuit directly. It wasn't about the case itself. It was about me, about what I had built, about the strength it took to get to this point. It wasn't just a response to their legal claim. It was a declaration of my resolve. The response was immediate. My name, my company, my story. It was everywhere. The media loved a comeback story. They loved the idea of the underdog rising up against the powers that be. And as the days passed, more and more people started paying attention. Sophia, on the other hand, couldn't control the narrative. The more she tried to deflect, the more the spotlight turned on her. People started questioning her motives, wondering why she was going after someone who was just trying to build something of her own. And that was when I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about something bigger. I wasn't just going to be the CEO of a company. I was going to change the game, but nothing prepared me for the moment when everything finally came to a head. A public showdown at a major business conference where I was slated to speak, and so was Sophia. It was a chance for us to face each other, not just as sisters, but as rivals. The tension in the room was palpable. We were both there, standing on stage in front of an audience of investors, media, and industry leaders. I could feel Sophia's eyes on me, that same smug expression still plastered on her face. But this time, I wasn't the one shaking. I was in control. I took the microphone in my hand and looked out at the crowd, my heart beating steadily in my chest. This was my moment. "This industry isn't just for the powerful," I said, my voice strong and clear. "It's for anyone who's willing to fight for what they believe in, for what they deserve." I looked directly at Sophia. And sometimes, the ones who get overlooked, the ones who are told they're not good enough, are the ones who end up changing the world. I could feel the eyes of the room on me, and for the first time in my life, I knew I had won. Months later, I stood at the helm of my company looking out over the glass walls of my office. The city sprawled beneath me, but I wasn't focused on that anymore. I had everything I needed: control, success, and most importantly, the respect I had fought so hard for. The lawsuit had been settled in my favor, but it wasn't just the legal victory that felt like a triumph. It was everything that had led to this moment. The sleepless nights, the relentless drive, the refusal to be crushed by betrayal. I had turned every ounce of pain into fuel, and now I was on top. Sophia and Ethan, their company had collapsed under the weight of their arrogance and lies. The public turned on them when their true motives were exposed, and they lost everything. As for me, I had built something real, something they couldn't tear down no matter how hard they tried. I smiled as I signed the last documents for a new partnership, a deal that would secure my company's future for years to come. As I closed the folder, I picked up my phone. There was a message from an old friend. I saw the news. You did it, Ava. You really did it. I smiled, replying simply, it's just the beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it.